On the same day that the bulk collection and storage of U.S. phone records was struck down by the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, we've also had a privacy setback. So some good, some bad. This is when it comes to cell phone tracking. Now, last year, the 11th Circuit ruled that the tracking of Quartavious Davis by his cell phone, so using his cell phone information to track physically where he was without a warrant, violated his Fourth Amendment rights to privacy. But this week, that was actually reversed by the same court, interestingly. Now, a panel of 11th Circuit courts overturned the ruling that they made last year in U.S. versus Davis. The new ruling instead finds that because Davis's phone location data wasn't Davis's property, but the property of his phone carrier, Metro PCS, he had no expectation of that data's privacy, and the cops tracking him didn't, in fact, need a warrant. So it's not actually his. Despite the fact that he owns the object, despite the fact that he's the one that creates the data, it fundamentally belongs to Metro PCS. And so why would he imagine that any of that would be kept from the eyes of the government? That's their justification. Seems crazy to me.
That sets such a terrible precedent. First of all, there have been other court rulings, federal court rulings, indicating that a police officer cannot put a GPS device on your car without a warrant.
Yes.
And so how is this different? The only difference is that you're dealing with a cell phone. And in this case, he was actually dealing with a much older cell phone that has antiquated technology. But nonetheless,
an iPhone 4.
It's essentially the same thing, right? Whether you put a GPS tracking device, whatever, in someone's car, or if you're tracking their phone. For some reason, the court had a difficult time seeing the similarities between the two.
Yeah.
Exactly. But why is it so difficult to get a warrant? Why is it so hard for local police enforcement, to the federal government, to get any type of warrant in order to do the searches that they need to do for an investigation?
Yeah.
Had they gotten a warrant, this wouldn't even be an issue. The guy was guilty of a bunch of robberies.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they had gotten the warrant, they'd be able to track him, and then they'd be able to prosecute him, and then this wouldn't even be an issue.
Yeah.
But authorities are lazy. They don't want to get the warrant.
Yeah, it's an inconvenience they don't want to deal with.
Yes.
Like, we recently had a change to our office policy where to request products to be purchased, we have to fill out a form. But, like, we're willing to do that. They're not willing to do that when it involves possibly infringing on constitutional rights. I just want a lint roller.
Yeah.
But, like, for them, it's an inconvenience that they can't actually pass.
When I say that it sets a bad precedent, I mean what they're referring to about the data. So any data that you accumulate on your phone through any type of telecoms communication company belongs to that company.
Yeah.
So does that mean that all the pictures on my phone belong to Verizon or Sprint? All the videos, all the text messages, everything belongs to the company.
We know where you went with those. I mean, using this legal justification, it seems like that's probably the case.
It's a disaster.
Now, I do want to get into, so you pointed out that he had an older phone, and I agree with you that I think that they will interpret this very broadly. They say not to worry, that there is a distinction between newer smartphones and the older phones, and let's talk a little bit about that. The judges note that Davis used an older cell phone, which allowed only which cell tower he connected to at a given time to be tracked. He wasn't tracked in real time, no location data was associated with his text messages, and the tracking lacked the precision of GPS or Wi-Fi-based location surveillance. So it was somewhat second-hand information in that they didn't physically know where his phone was, they just knew which cell tower he was connected to. But if you're moving across the country or through a city, that can be used to track you, at least in a general sense.
Right.
So the court literally says that the government can do this because the phone data was not his. He didn't own it, but the phone company owned it. Well, guess what? I don't own my car or my house. The bank owns it.
Yeah.
So now so until you pay off your house, you don't have a protection from unreasonable search and seizure. So that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. If you extrapolate what they're saying, you don't own that data. The company owns it. Well, I don't own my car. I don't own my house.
Yeah.
The bank owns it. They can take it away from me at any time they want.
Yeah. So maybe they could get those tracking systems put on cars if the car company is willing to play ball. I mean, our constitutional rights should not depend on whether some company we bought something from is willing to collaborate with the government against us. And that's what they seem to be saying is the case.
So this is not the United States. I don't know where these judges went to law school or what they think about liberty or the Constitution.
Yeah.
But again, you don't have to go to law school to know that they're wrong. And it just means that, and they're not smarter than us. It just means that they've read more. And all that information doesn't help inform them because they have way more information than we do, and they still come to bad decisions like this.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of this has come about, as we've pointed out, because of WikiLeaks, because of Edward Snowden, that information being released. And I remember the good times after that happened where people cared about it and Americans were infuriated by the government trampling on their rights.
Yes.
And now even, like, we're going to get a little bit of coverage out of this where people are going to see it on blogs and they're going to see it on the news because they'll have to cover it because it's so big. But will it be of interest to most Americans tomorrow or next week? I don't know. I mean, it's amazing that we've gotten any progress on these when so few Americans seem to be pushing for it. And when you have, you don't have that pressure, but on the other side, you have the Republicans hoping to win the next presidential election on the back of fear of ISIS and terrorists, then that doesn't bode well for our privacy rights going forward over the next 4 years, 8 years, or even longer.